Hello everyone, my name is Rose Spiga. I am starting a conversation series on how we can all shape a better Africa. I'm joined today by Diana Mungare. Diana Mungare is a Senior Investment Associate at LGT Venture Philanthropy. Diana's primary focus at LTG is in conservation, where she invests in organizations in Africa, providing nature-based solutions to combat climate change. Diana also co-leads Haba Capital, an angel investor group of young African professionals, and dedicates her time to supporting local entrepreneurs through startup funding and business consulting services. Welcome to the show, Diana.
Thank you.
So Diana, I'm so happy that you agreed to do this. I feel like you're my little sister, and I'm just so honored to have you on the show, because every time I speak to you, I learn so much, and I've really seen the value of having younger friends who see the world differently.
I appreciate it a lot.
So thank you so much. I thought it would be interesting to start with your childhood. So where did you grow up, and what values did your parents instill in you that basically drive the way you move through the world today?
Yes, so I grew up between many towns.
Okay.
So a bit in Nyeri.
Okay.
I think it was my first maybe 8 years.
Okay.
13. It's a mix. Between Nyeri, Nakuru, and Bungoma.
Okay.
Until, I guess, by the time I was 18, I lived through those three towns.
Okay.
And then in high school, I was in Kenya High, in Nairobi. So yeah, I would say those four cities are where I spent almost time between 0 and 18.
Okay.
And in terms of values, so I think one of the things that I respected, like at least my dad instilled a lot to me, is kind of discipline and repetitive discipline. So from my young age, at least from even class 1, after school every day I would go to the National Library in Nyeri. In fact, recently we were joking that even the shopkeepers around there knew me. They would give me like sweets on credit because they knew I'd always come back. And so having that routine every day, knowing that like that's something I'd go to, kind of put in the hours of like just reading storybooks and being around books, really was like, I guess, a key part of when I was young. And then another thing was just like being okay with new environments and stability with that. So given that I'd moved around a bit, and so for example, be in school in Nyeri, and then in the holidays I'd go to Nakuru to visit my mom. It meant that I'd either have like 2 parallel groups of friends, or sometimes few friends who move, and then like I can move to at the new place, and the friends I had disappeared. Really just being able to deal with ambiguity and change. I think those two things have really been able to just shape who I am, and they allow me to be comfortable in places that are new.
Yeah, actually, I never knew all that about you, and it explains so much. So maybe fast forward to after Kenya High, the Kenya High School, and your transition to the University of Pennsylvania and studying at Wharton as a Huntsman Scholar, which is why I met you.
Yeah.
How did you find your way there?
So I think the journey started in high school.
Okay.
I was lucky enough to participate in an exchange program, I think in Form 3, where I went to a school in Boston, actually, for 2 months, and I was a student there, and there's so many, actually, I think it was an aha moment for a lot of things that I think I care about now. One, seeing how different the education system was there in terms of the amount of resources. Like I had classes where there'd be 8 people with 1 teacher, and this is nuts. And just also, I think I was also quite impressed by how like intense the math classes are, because I think there's different levels to what class of math.
AP
classes, and stuff like that.
Advanced placement.
Yeah, basically advanced classes, and you can kind of the more you study, the more you can do more, right? And like same kind of everyone has like the same level.
Exactly.
That's on the side. But and then the other thing that was quite impressive for me was just the waste management there. I couldn't understand how there was literally no litter. There was like what's called the garbage collection bins everywhere, them being sorted. And so I think from there, like, the two things that I got out of that trip was one, that I want to go back to the US for university, and two, that I want to somehow be involved within sustainability and being able to either manage our resources better or just literally manage our waste, which is in Kenya. And so, yeah, after that trip and after going back to high school, finishing my KCSE, I was lucky to get into the Equity Scholars Program. And so when I was there, I was very much determined to apply to schools. And Penn in itself was I liked Penn because for me it had a nice name. It was a nice ring. I was like, oh, Penn. You know, if you have a University of Pennsylvania, you can shorten it to just Penn. That sounds right. And then luckily, I guess through networks, I met a person called Brian Maweru. And heard that he was in this program that was half business, half international relations, and you needed to have a language component to it, and it just sounded amazing. And so for me, it felt like a perfect blend of things I'd be interested in, a diverse thing to study, because Penn is known to be very focused on business, and if you go just that one track, you get to lose that liberal arts experience as well. And so I was able to do both, and then also kind of deep dive in German, because that was the language I came in with, and studied abroad in Germany. So all to say, like, I'd say that program in high school really was the one that kind of made me realize that it is possible to study in the US and what opportunities that would look like. And yeah, that's how I ended up there. Okay,
wow, amazing. And how did you think about your career post-Wharton? Because I have some thoughts based on my interaction with you, but I'm curious as to how you made the decision for your next step once you graduated.
Yeah, so I guess, so Penn, for example, is first of all, is very career heavy. Like, people start interviewing for jobs in your second year, like you don't even know where the library is. Why you
I relate to that. Yeah,
people applying for jobs already. And so because of that, I was lucky enough to intern for 2 summers at McKinsey, so in DC and San Francisco offices. And I guess in both scenarios, in both cities, I was kind of looking for the team that has sustainability projects, but then in both summers I worked in healthcare, which in itself was still a good experience, but I realized if I wanted to do things related to sustainability, in the US, especially in the energy space, it's very heavily subsidized by the government, and so I felt like that wouldn't be so relatable to what I do in Kenya, or even if I learned how to make energy deals happen in Kenya, in the US, it don't be so transferable in Kenya. And then at the same time, so basically with that in mind, knowing that what I want to do has to have a direct link to Kenya, or has to apply to what I want to do in Kenya, then it started making sense to start looking at opportunities in Kenya. And it in itself was a bit daunting because you have this precious 12 months of OPT that you want to use. And it's like gold, basically. And
OPT is like a work permit,
interim
work permit after.
Basically a work permit that it's like you get to work for a company for 12 months, and then from there you enter the lottery to get the actual like full-time visa. And so it sounded crazy for people, like, oh, you don't want to just do 12 months in the US, do this OPT thing, then you leave. But then if you think about that, it meant applying for one job in the US and 1 year later applying for another one. So that didn't seem too stable. And then also, coincidentally, it was just when Trump had gotten elected. So just in 16 years. So it felt like, I could stay here, and they already had started banning the Iranians and Nigerians like day one. So I knew it wasn't going to get any easier to get a job here. And I definitely didn't know what life would become when I moved up. I had no expectations, and also no view of what it would look like. But at least I knew, for example, I was still in touch with a lot of my friends. So somewhere in between, I forgot to mention, I did 1 year in Strathmore University.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so in between Kenya High and while I was applying, I had enrolled in Strathmore for a year.
I see.
And so I had, like, at least according to your friends in Kenya who I still kept in touch with. and I was like, if I come back home, I'm not going to just like start from scratch. There's a community, there's things I'm excited to work on. And so I started looking at jobs here in Kenya, and one of the ones that I came across was a company called Cross Boundary, which is an investment firm that helps basically unlock capital for emerging markets.
Right.
At the time, they had both an energy fund, so investing in commercial industrial solar, and then they had an investment advisory arm, essentially where they help entrepreneurs raise capital or investors who are looking into the African market make decisions about their investments. And then coincidentally at the time, the energy team was quite small, and so they only had opportunities in the advisory team, which for me at the time, I didn't even understand what that meant. But I was like, you know what, I want to make an impact in Africa, or it relates to helping businesses grow in the continent, and so I'll see what that is, and if there's opportunities in the energy space, we can unpack that later. And so, I just made that decision. I graduated I think I got the job maybe like December 2016, or basically before January.
Right.
And then I graduated in May. And then in July, I moved and started working here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Let me reflect on, I think when I met you,
tell me.
and I think it was at an Africa conference, and at the time I was kind of on the cusp of moving back. And I just remember meeting you and being so enamored by the fact that you were very committed and you had a lot of intention about moving back home. And I think like I might have been one of those people who were projecting like my fear on like my little sister of like, why do you want to do that now? Why don't you get some experience? But I think from watching you make the different career moves that you've made since graduating from undergrad, you've actually taught me that it's possible to move back after undergrad and actually have like a really satisfying impact-filled career. So I'm really proud of you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so now you're in Kenya. You're working at Cross Boundary.
Yes. At the time.
At the time. And so what career pivots or like how did that experience shape your journey to LGT?
At Cross Boundary, first of all, it was a great landing step or stepping stone into the market here. So I was able to essentially be in this, I guess in the US a lot of people talk about investment banking. It's this daunting thing that you'll start working at midday and you'll finish at 3 a.m.
Or not finish.
Or sleep there.
I did that summer internship.
You sleep under your desk. It's brutal, right? And so, and you don't even understand what that really means. But then when I came here, I realized that what Cross Boundary is doing is basically being an investment bank for investors here in Africa, really helping them unlock those opportunities. And so what was very exciting for me there is, for example, if I meet an entrepreneur who's looking to raise funding, doesn't know how to kind of mold their story or doesn't know what's the most important thing for investors to know about their business. So coaching them through that process or helping them create the investor materials. And then also got to get quite deep on various sectors that every time I do a project, I'm like, I could invest in that one. I went so deep on macadamia nuts, so deep on the dairy sector, ag tech, logistics tech. So really saw a broad sense of industries, was able to meet a wide range of entrepreneurs and help them with their capital raising process, and then at the same time see about trends or what investors are looking into and such. And actually, anyway, side note, sometimes I think I remember there's one conversation I've definitely mentioned to one or two people when I was at Cross Boundary, and I used to tell them, I want to become an angel investor. This is going to lead up to something I see in the future. But I thought about it maybe this week I've thought about it a bunch, and I've always, and the person I told, it's like, what do you mean? Like, what about money?
Yeah,
I mean,
typically,
that's
yeah,
true. I don't have money.
Yeah. Or your trust fund baby.
Yeah, and like why? It's like why can't you just buy
Right.
US stocks and they're safe?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Or Kenyan bonds for the treasuries.
yeah,
But
something just safe.
Yeah.
And I really need to tell him what I've been up to recently. I think about him a lot, and I want to tell him what I've been up to. But anyway, so yeah, the experience at CB I think was quite molding in terms of understanding the investment landscape here. But then I realized that I wanted to go beyond just, for example, the kind of the consulting 6 to 8 week projects where I would help the entrepreneur and then they'll go fundraise, maybe they won't, maybe they'll be successful, maybe they won't, but I'm not involved beyond that, or like the points of contact kind of end. And so I wanted to just play a more active role in helping those businesses grow, either one by giving them capital, and then two also being able to kind of hold their hand in any areas that we provide, like any value add later on. And then also, I think as a consultant, the mindset is generally positive, and I think I'm also very optimistic about things. And so going into an investing side, the other purpose for it was to help me also become more critical about when I'm evaluating an opportunity, being very like upfront about the risks, being very truthful to the fact that this is not all rosy, which is probably what I was trying to do.
A more balanced
view, and then just being aware. I'm investing in this company knowing very well that these are the risks that are there, rather than things come up in the future that you didn't know would have happened. And so following that, I started looking into direct investing roles, and I think at the time, and I think increasingly now, at the time there's mostly private equity opportunities in Kenya and Africa in general. I think that didn't really fit so well with what I wanted to do. I didn't want to just, especially at the early stages, where as an analyst or an associate, it's mostly like around crunching numbers. I wanted to see how I can get more involved with organizations. And then so LGT struck out to me because one, it was very much focused on impact, and so building relationships with the different organizations, but then also very critical about the funding they give. So despite it being the philanthropic arm of the princely family of Liechtenstein, the investment process is just the same as if you were doing a private equity deal.
I see.
I'm sure the grantees or the portfolio probably would complain about how rigorous it is. But that's how I made the switch to LGT. And I think with that, I also made an active decision because that would be very much impact focused. I didn't want to kind of lose the commercial angle, what I've been working on at CB and those same kinds of deals. So I started pursuing other areas where I can be able to still look at business that are commercial and be able to give the kind of the same support to them.
Correct. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing with LGT.
Sure. So at LGT, I primarily work on the conservation portfolio. So essentially identifying organizations in Africa that, one, are helping to propel nature-based solutions, and so that's essentially anything natural, like protecting trees, protecting wildlife, planting new trees, preserving what's already there, or also and that's on the terrestrial side, and then also similarly in the marine side, so any organizations that are working to protect the ocean and fresh water. And so what that means essentially is I've been working with organizations like in the Mara, where they've set up community conservancies, and so these are just like, say, 1,000 landowners who would otherwise have sold small pieces of their land to private owners, but instead they decided to come together into a community conservancy, and then they lease out their land to operators. Hoteliers. And so then they're able to, one, get like annual revenue from these pieces of land through the land leases, and then at the same time, there's like the wildlife is preserved. And so it's been quite exciting, and really getting my hands dirty in, both figuratively, and also just, I guess, being actively aware that so much is changing about the world, and how can we play an active role in protecting it.
Okay.
And then also with COVID-19, a lot of things came to light. One, that tourism is not sustainable alone for like for example in the Mara and or for those community landowners. And so we've been working to see how we can introduce alternative revenue streams, particularly around just payment for ecosystem services.
Right.
And so we're in the process of essentially, hopefully, like working to develop a carbon project in the Mara.
Amazing.
And so that essentially would mean that it's definitely a big animal, but the summary is that the different landowners who are protecting their land, so saying that they're not going to say burn all the grass or they're not going to cut down the trees, then they can be able to essentially register that project where they'll continuously protect it and get revenue from it.
Exactly.
And that's where then the European, American corporates come in, and they need to offset their CO2 emissions, and so then they're able to buy the credits now. Yeah, so the carbon credit space, or just the climate change area, is becoming more important to people, to companies, that they are aware that they're distracting the environment. I mean, it's quite evident. I think this every year gets worse.
Right. I didn't even know venture philanthropy was an investing category until you kind of came to me saying, I have this opportunity, and I was like, okay, but let's make a plan so that you keep that commercial acumen.
Yeah.
So maybe now we can transition to Haba and what you do with Haba.
So Haba initially, I guess a good time for me to explain what Haba does. It's essentially a group of Kenyan diaspora, and also it's African diaspora who we've met through our times in the US. So in our work environments, we've come together to say we want to use our capital to essentially drive growth for local businesses. And so we've primarily been doing that through venture debt. So small businesses give them debt, trying essentially, they probably would have trouble getting those kinds of loans in banks, or they already have depleted their circle banks, so really being able to provide some form of working capital. But then I think venture equity also is quite exciting, and so I bought the first equity deal into Haba, and then we started thinking more about how we can continue with that line of work. And so having brought a few deals, Sandy just approached me and was like, I'm looking to build a team, and you've been quite involved. And I was like, I thought everyone does this. Am I more involved than others? Like, I genuinely didn't realize it was.
I think it was the way you showed up for Teddy, because that's one of your passions, is working with businesses. And he probably saw that spark in you.
So then I guess officially joined the team earlier this year in January, and ever since we've been working together to continue to review more equity deals, more debt deals as well in parallel. And I think it's quite exciting for me to again look at businesses that have different areas that they need support in, not only financially but also beyond the financials, looking to find other partners who would help them improve as an organization. I'm sure Alan is her husband, also is involved in that part of essentially helping organizations or the businesses get to the next level. It's been quite fun continue to work to build Haba, and over time, we're still saying, we're building the structures, and who knows what's going to become in the next few years. But I think we're in a good place where there's a lot of people know more about our work, and a lot more even inquiries from people who are like, I want to put my money somewhere. How do you help? I was like, we can send you a few deals, and can even start you off with a few debt deals, so that equity is like a sink, you don't see you in 10 years. If I see you,
I see you, right?
And I guess also then in parallel with Haba, I joined a Future Africa. So this is essentially another syndicate fund, primarily focused on equity deals in the seed stage. And it's run by essentially yeah, very, very successful entrepreneurs from Nigeria. One of them started Flutterwave and Andela.
Right. Yeah, I was like, I've heard this name before.
Yeah, his name is Inolua.
This is the Future Africa Collective.
Yeah, exactly.
I see.
And so that one is also quite interesting because
Yes.
I then get to look at businesses also in other parts of Africa.
Absolutely.
So a fair amount of Nigeria, in Kenya as well, and also just I'm now getting to see many things. So for example, if I think about like logistics businesses, there's like 6 of them, 7 of them, and so being able to see all the ones as they come up, seeing how different they are. In fintech, there's so many businesses that are trying to have like API solutions, and they all kind of sprouted at once earlier this year. So seeing how they all differ, and then knowing which ones to put the money in.
Correct.
And then I guess more recently, I joined the Nairobi Business Angels Network.
Okay.
And that one's primarily focused on Kenyan businesses and startups in Kenya.
Yes.
And it's also just a new way to meet new people who have either investing veterans or they're also new and have different perspectives. And as I said, I think my experience in reviewing businesses has been maybe understanding more about their market and understanding where they are competitively. But then with this group, there's people who then review the tech. They're like, oh, this tech, I don't think it's as advanced enough. And I'm like, oh, I wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
I'll just say, oh, nice tech. Sounds like you're solving the problem.
Yeah,
Or then someone just throws in, we're an AI driven. I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah.
And someone comes and tells you, actually, that is an AI. Like, they're just throwing in a word. So that's been quite also, I guess, helpful in understanding the different opportunities and then seeing what's out there and then actively putting our money where our mouth is in funding African startups.
Right.
I think Kenya is also slowly getting there. Nigeria is probably way ahead of us.
Level.
Yeah, most of the initial funding that they get is from Nigeria. It's a lot of other entrepreneurs investing in other entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
And so if you're able to take that off or like have that take off in Africa, I think, or in Kenya.
Or East Africa.
East Africa.
Yeah, the East Africa
the East African market
is very different.
So that would be quite something. And then we don't have this like funding gaps, right?
Correct.
People really struggle in the beginning, which is when they like should have the resources to just push.
Yes.
And so if we're able to collectively just bring our money in.
So you have become an angel investor.
I have become.
You put it out into the universe and it actually happened.
Yeah.
And I think what I love so much about the investing side or the work that you're doing on the investing side is that it teaches at least anyone who's watching today that you don't have to have a whole lot of money. You don't have to be a trust fund baby. But you can pursue your passions and the things that you care about and find a way to actually make impact and be in those spaces and keep learning and be curious to the point that you're actually moving the needle.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud of the work that you're doing with Haba as well.
Thank you so much.
And I guess in closing, I just want to applaud you because you're one of those people who I think of in moments of like, I need to be strong, like I need to be brave, I need to be bold, I need to be fearless. And I think it's because you do things with a lot of conviction and intention. Sometimes to the point that you scare me. I don't know if you scare yourself. Yeah, but I really think for anyone who's looking to make an impact, you kind of have to scare yourself and push the boundaries. Yeah. And I'm just so proud, like watching you sometimes from a distance, and even from near, because I can't wait to see all that you accomplish both at LGT and Haba. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you learned a lot about how you can make an impact on the continent and shape the Africa we want from Diana. She's a young, curious, intelligent young lady who is making strides both in climate change and in supporting African entrepreneurs. You don't have to be really late stage in your career. You can start where you are with the resources that you have, as long as you maintain curiosity and drive to shape the Africa